we go.
Okay.
There we are.
You found us?
Yep, we are on. We are live.
Okay, let's see.
Good evening, everybody.
Buenas noches. I do a sound check here.
Yep. We're on.
You're a little bit ahead of me because you're faster than me. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for being here.
Yep.
Please share this out. Invite your friends. Tell them a Mexican Crossing Lines is here. And we took a little break, little trip, visit family. How come I can't hear us?
Check 1, 2, 3. Do we have audio? Nemo, do we have audio?
Yep.
All right.
There you are.
Good. So we're set.
And now we're back.
Yep.
With more information. We're returned and we are ready. We gotta get a show in this week, right?
Oh, yeah.
We took a little vacay, much needed time away. Been a lot of stuff going on in our family lately, so it was really good to spend time with our loved ones and care for them. And now we're back with our radio family, and we are about to bring you a great show on some drifters. You and I both came up with this name together, didn't we, Duke?
Yep.
I wasn't
talking
sure.
About the drifters, talking about the grifters.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out which one. I really wanted to focus on the roaming aspect, the traveling aspect. But Duke thought about the con man aspect. So we just combined the two for tonight's show, Drifter here on a Mexican Crossing Lines. So why don't you give us some music while I invite some folks in? Help me invite folks in, please. Here we go.
It's over.
Guess what letter I got to this time?
G.
H.
Oh.
What? Yeah, I'm industrious over here. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. I wanted to cover a little bit of current events.
Yeah.
Real quick. There's all sorts of crazy things going on. One of them, for example, and I just have to talk about it and share my thoughts, is that people have kind of lost their minds, or some people have lost their minds over Colin Kaepernick being chosen for the Nike ads here.
Yeah, for the 30th anniversary or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The Just Do It campaign.
Yep.
And interestingly, Colin Kaepernick did support the contingency of Native Americans that were in California, I believe, that were related to Standing Rock. I don't know if you remember that.
No.
But they
vaguely
got him to, and I believe that Colin Kaepernick actually donated a considerable amount of money. He didn't know it. I don't know if he knew what was going on or who he was giving it to. I think a lot of people didn't check into more carefully who they were giving their donation dollars to, and that sadly is how a lot of people got swindled out of their money. And you should know where your money is going, right? You should have a choice about that. I don't know if Colin Kaepernick knew. I find the conversation around all of the shoe burning and all of this very interesting. I mean, the whole destruction of clothing and apparel seems just kind of stupid to me.
Yeah.
I guess it's a form of protest too, and they're protesting a guy protesting.
Yeah.
in a weird but much more dramatic way with fire.
Yeah.
Which I just kind of think is so bizarre. But what's more interesting to me is a conversation I don't hear people having about how protests are done today and whether or not people understand who the protest leaders are.
Yeah.
What their real true agendas are, who funds those people leading those protests, and everything in between, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how is it possible that, people don't look into the leadership and they just dive in and blindly support protests, many of which, as we have seen, have been led in some cases by Nazis, by dangerous people who were associated with Standing Rock, who are now leaders of Antifa, like Evan Duke III, who was one of Wes's friends.
Yeah.
Wes Clark Jr.'s friends. The guy that started the Veterans Stand for Standing Rock out at Standing Rock. And so I think that not just athletes and celebrities, but also the everyday American and activists or ally should look into what they're getting themselves associated with.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, I know that it sounds anti-American almost to say don't go to a protest, but I'm not saying that. I'm saying know what you're going to and who is the leading it, what you're co-signing onto. Know who you're standing shoulder to shoulder with and what this is really about. Because a lot of the movements of today, a lot of the campaigns of today have been infiltrated, for one, and we know that for a fact. They're heavily surveilled. They have a secondary and tertiary agendas, many of which are not in the know of the general public, like the Women's March, for example, the people behind the Women's March, which are Tamika Mallory and Linda Sarsour.
Yeah.
If you have been watching our shows, you would know there is something absolutely wrong, anti-Semitic, dangerous, and terroristy about the associations between Tamika Mallory and Linda Sarsour and their Justice Democrats or whatever it was. No, Justice, I can't remember. We did a whole show on them. And their delegation that went to Israel.
Yep.
So it was very interesting also to see Linda Sarsour show up at the Kavanaugh
Confirmation
hearings.
Mm-hmm.
You're the one that saw it, so you.
I was watching the news, and I was wondering about the protesters, and they heard them in the background, but the channel that was streaming wasn't focusing on the audience; they were focusing on the people in the congressional hearing, and you could hear people yelling in the background. And later, I was watching, I think, ABC News, and they had a shot of someone getting arrested. And I said, "Is that Linda Sarsour?" And I thought, "It is." And it was just like a 2-second, shot of her being hauled away. And I told Cindy, and she had missed it. But then we went online and started searching, and sure enough, her and what's the women's march name?
Tamika Mallory was there too?
Yeah, she was too.
Really?
Yeah, she was arrested also.
I didn't see her.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well,
I didn't see her either. But...
I didn't see what you saw.
Yeah.
You screamed from the other room, "That's Linda Sarsour."
Yeah.
And I ran in there, but it was over by then. So it was very interesting to see those two women appear. And I think they're kind of opportunistic.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
definitely.
They know that there's something going on. They know that people are passionate about it. And they want to make themselves some kind of heroic figure out in front of the whole thing. And in the process of doing that, people might go to them thinking that those people who are in the leadership of these groups or campaigns are people that you can go to for help, that you can go to for support, and also that they're a safe person to go to.
Yeah.
As we found at Standing Rock, the people that were in the leadership of the camp, the people that were some of the heroes of the movement, were up to no good, were associated with being basically Morton County operatives, like turning state's evidence against real water protectors. And some of those people, for example, were Mike Fassig and his son, Eric Fassig, who has since been also convicted of kidnapping and rape. Both of them were informants, known informants, as was their security detail leader out at the camp, Rattler, a.k.a. Michael Marcus. So there were so many of them in those groups that turned out to be informants and or were dragnetting innocent people like Kathleen Bennett with false accusations, completely fabricated accusations in the case of Kathleen Bennett. And those people went on after camp to commit more frauds, more crimes, and hurt more people. So, folks, I think you need to stay safe out there.
Yeah.
I see these people keep popping up all over the place, and it bothers me and it frightens me, and it makes me angry that people don't understand what's behind these folks, what they have gotten themselves into. Now, if you will recall, today's show is called Grifter Drifter, and this is going to be my topic tonight on Mexican Crossing Lines with your hosts Cindy Gomez-Schempp
and Duke Gomez-Schempp
here on 88.1 FM KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead, where we're adding local color to your airwaves. You can also find my past shows at kpppfm.com, and I would encourage you to do so. Going back to the most recent ones, in which I talked to you about the connections between Wesley Clark Jr., the guy that brought the veterans out to Standing Rock, along with Michael A. Wood Jr., and their CFO, Sadef Buyaktaman, and some of the other people that were, Chris Dussing, that were in the main staff of that group. And Wesley Clark's dad, General Wesley Clark, former NATO Supreme Commander. And also a man that Wesley Clark Jr. had told us had nothing to do, wanted nothing to do with Standing Rock or the veterans going there, which wasn't true. I've since learned that Wes lied about that, lied about what he was doing right before he went out to Standing Rock and how his father was connected to these climate change or climate summit meetings that they were holding, as well as their connections to the organization of inherited wealth of trillionaires such as Nexus.
Oh, yeah.
The Nexus group. But I'm sure that there are other groups and people associated with vast amounts of wealth. So I would recommend that you go back and check out these shows, to include Hollywood, which shows you a lot of the actors and Hollywood connections, including the people that went out to do PR at Standing Rock that were working directly for Wesley Clark Jr., Maggie Day, and Seven McDonald. And another one of the people that they worked with on this Standing Rock, I don't know, what would you call it? An operation.
Yep.
That they did out there. And who also works in political campaigns, Winnie Wong. Winnie Wong and her connection to a lot of these same stars and a lot of these campaigns for people that all were at Standing Rock, like Linda Sarsour.
Yeah.
Like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, one of Cenk Uger's first picks for the Justice Democrats. Remember the Justice Democrats? TYT, Cenk Uger, Jordan Sheridan. Remember that whole connection? That's where Wes comes from the Young Turks. And we showed you Young Turks' connection and Cenk's connection to the CFO of Standing Rock's veteran stand, Sadef Buyaktaman. And of course, we showed you the connections between Wes Clark, the general, and Sadef and her father. And Sadef and her father, of course, they run the Turkish Forum, a pro-Erdogan propaganda publication that appears in the WikiLeaks pertaining to Borat's box. So check out Hollywood and Glitterati. Glitterati will show you a lot of the connections that go beyond Hollywood into the FBI, the CIA, government, the Pentagon, and some of the deals that the people that were associated with Standing Rock and Wesley Clark and Veterans Stand were doing. In particular, with Phyllis Young, with specific people in the leadership of the Standing Rock movement, and energy policy. And then, of course, we included the gift of gab, which we devoted almost entirely to talking about Tulsi Gabbard, which also covered a lot of her connections and the connections of other members of Congress, other politicians, other people with that gift of gab that went out to Standing Rock. And of course, there was two different shows that discussed the interview that I did back in 2017, in June of 2017, which was 5 hours or longer.
Yeah.
It was a really long interview. You can go and check out Freaked the F Out Parts 1 and 2. And then, of course, I have the show on General Wesley Clark and DC Influence. So all of those links will be available to you. Please go back and check those out if you want to learn more about where I am at right now with this story that continues about Standing Rock. I wanted to remind everybody that I really appreciate that you send us stuff. I literally had to go back 2 months into what people sent us to find out what we're using for that show.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, it took. That's why it took me a while to find it and get it ready, because that's how long ago it was that I got this information. So I really appreciate all the support and everything that you send us. I even went through and got some information out of emails that were sent to us by some folks last year for tonight's show. Yeah. Wow. So thank you. Continue doing what you do. How do folks get a hold of us?
Well, actually, that's really good feedback there that and proving that we do look at everybody's stuff. It just takes us a while sometimes, and if you went back a year for material now, I think that's pretty credible. It's like people have sent us stuff that's very important. And again, there's many ways to do it. The simple way is if you want to use your phone and leave a voice message on our message line, it's right there on the screen, 701-566-0917. Again, 701-566-0917. And you can do email. You can do Cindy at kpppfm.com or Duke at kpppfm.com. You can also do Facebook. A lot of people have done Facebook with Messenger because it's easy to send files attached to what they're sending. And you can just go to 88.1 FM and actually 88.1 FM Fargo Moorhead on Facebook. We also have the People's Press Project and Mexi-Can. You can follow Cindy's page by searching at Cindy Gomez-Schempp and a kpppfm.com website where we put all of our podcasts. We put audio files when we actually get them edited and can put them up. The past couple of shows where we've had Wesley Clark. Very hard to edit because there's so much swearing, and when we do our broadcasts on the radio, we can't have any swearing because that would, that's not cool. It's not good to do, and we don't do it. So we haven't put those audio files up because there are hours and hours of show and hours of editing, so there are no audio files. But we've been uploading our videos to YouTube, so you get a nice high definition video that you can watch. You can find those at kpppfm.com, and you can comment there on any show or send us a contact form, which is actually on the website also. So many ways to get a hold of us, and I do thank you all for sending stuff because some of the information is stuff that we would never get. We're only a couple people, 4 people working on this show, and that research is excellent. It's just very, very, very helpful for us to do our show. So thank you very much for all of that, and keep it coming. Like we said, we'll use it. Might not do it now, but look at tonight. We're digging up stuff that was sent to us over a year ago, and so you do get heard, and we will use it. We just need to figure out when we need to use it. It's all helpful information. Sometimes it actually steers us into researching something else because you gave us a lead and a tip on something, and then sometimes we get a hold of you and ask you for more information or where you got that. So thank you very much, everybody.
Mm-hmm. Believe me, it may have taken me this long to get as far as I have in connecting the dots on who was doing what and why it was wrong. But I'm not going to stop. And believe me, I will connect every single dot with details. So, folks may have thought, oh, I got away, unscathed. And, I'm sure Wes Clark Jr. thought that for a long time. Like, I got away with it. But no. And let me tell you, there are a lot of similarities between the hypocrisy and the racism of Donald Trump, especially with regard to the, fake outrage he has over NFL players like Kaepernick kneeling for the anthem because he thinks it's an affront to veterans.
Yeah.
And the way that Wes Clark Jr. Acted as if, and his daddy acted as if they're the type of people that revere veterans and respect veterans, and yet they exploited veterans, used them as a prop to go to Standing Rock, and they used fake Indians, literally fake Indians, along with some sellouts out at Standing Rock, like LaDonna and Phyllis Young and those folks and Chase Iron Eyes. But literal fake Indians like Red Wolf Pope and Miwok Indian Desiree Kane.
Oh, yeah.
And so many others that we've shown you, and we're going to keep showing you. And propping up those fake New Age, having nothing to do with real tradition type folks. And that's a form of appropriation and continued genocide on real indigenous tradition and people that we are required to speak out against. I am required to speak out against, and which I will. And I find the hypocrisy of what Wes Clark Jr. has done to be really distasteful, exploitative, and appropriative of the people of Standing Rock and of Indigenous people in general and people of color. I also wanted to remind you that on my last show, and I was talking to you about the influence that people have out in DC, among them are Nora Maccabee. And if you will recall, I showed you she has some pretty important connections in DC, right?
Mm-hmm.
You wanted to share a picture and show her in DC?
I will try it. We actually did put that in, but I'll get it. Oh,
Okay.
This one here.
No, yeah, that's not it. No, it's the picture of her with CIA director and Harper Simon, whom interviewed her, if you'll recall. I'll let you grab that. You showed it to me earlier. And
Yeah, but we didn't put it in the script.
Okay, that's fine. You can look for it
I'll look
while
for
I
it.
talk.
This one right here.
Yep, that's the one. There it is. See?
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to remind folks of this. You can take that image down for a moment, but we'll have you bring it up again. But first, I wanted to take you even further back to that clip, that one clip that we played a long time ago of Wes Clark Jr. on an interview that I did where he told me who were the first people that got him to go out to Standing Rock in the first place. And if you'll recall in that 6 or 7 minute clip, he names off a bunch of people.
Yep.
Among those people that he names off are Sean Stone, the son of Oliver Stone, Hollywood director, right?
Yep.
Who you saw with Nora Maccabee in pictures on the show that I did talking about Nora Maccabee.
Yeah.
With Oliver Stone, not Sean Stone, the son, but with Oliver Stone, the director. You see Nora Maccabee, the woman you just saw on screen, at the Pentagon, talking to people about energy policy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sean Stone, I also showed you, is connected to not only Russian television, but also to InfoWars and to Roger Stone himself, the man who was the chief advisor for Trump, the president, who is now being investigated and who is an unindicted co-conspirator along with Michael Cohen.
Yeah.
So Sean Stone and Wes did interviews about Standing Rock shortly after he came back on Russian television, which he claimed he would never be caught dead on. I found the interview, so he obviously lied about that.
Yeah.
And maybe he didn't want me to find connections between TYT and Cenk Uygur and those people and the alt-right and these, Russian television and their brand of, because, Sean Stone isn't just connected to Russian television. He's also connected to InfoWars. And now we're all the way over here in Roger Stone, Alex Jones, Crazy Town world, right? But what you may recall in the last show where I showed you an interview with this Harper Simon, where he was talking to who was he interviewing? Harper Simon was interviewing Nora Maccabee.
Yes.
Where he was interviewing Nora Maccabee. The channel that he was interviewing her on was called Lip TV, and I showed everyone that is one of the new channels of the Young Turks, TYT, okay? So, first, I am going to show you that interview with Rosanna Arquette and Harper Simon. It's above that one, honey. There you go. Here we go. Here's another interview with Harper Simon on Lip TV. This one is of Rosanna Arquette, who you will find was at Standing Rock and was involved in one of these past shows. I showed you many pictures of her and her sister and how they're close to Seven McDonald. Here, the PR person hired from Hollywood to to go and work out on the Veterans Stand for Standing Rock and do PR for Wes Clark Jr. and his organization. Here's an interview with Roseanne Arquette and Harper Simon on Lip TV.
Smith show, which was fantastic. Rock and roll is definitely a dying breed. It's pretty sad. Look at the music that's out there. I'm not in love with pop music these days at all. But yes, I do love music. I love that you can do this. That you can create like that. It just comes through you, and you can. There's something about it. Since I was a kid, when I was young, I grew up around, the bitter end and folk singers. My godfather was Hamilton Camp, who was good friends with your dad.
I didn't know about this part of your family.
Yeah. No, I grew up around Joan Baez and Joni Mitchell and Dylan, who's being honored tonight.
Wow, really? You were growing up in the village?
Yeah, so I grew up around the folk music scene, and I was at Woodstock. Except I wish I could say.
You must have been.
I wish I could say not really. I was I played in the mud and remember Country Joe and the Fish. That's it. I wish
That's
I
what
could
you
say,
remember?
Yeah, it's terrible. I could lie and say I remember Hendrix, but no.
You don't.
Country Joe and the Fish.
Well, he was great.
Fixing the dye rag and the mud and playing in the mud.
mud.
That's what that was.
That was a shout out to. Should we give a shout out to Seven McDonald?
Seven McDonald. Yeah, that's right. Seven.
You were good friends with her. That's how I know you, actually. That's Country Joe's daughter.
That's Country Joe's daughter.
Country Joe's daughter.
Yeah.
So Roseanne Arquette knows and is friends with Seven McDonald.
Exactly.
Harper Simon is very close friends with Seven McDonald. Nora Maccabee is friends with Seven McDonald. Maggie Day is friends with Seven McDonald. Wesley Clark Jr. is friends with Seven McDonald. And she did the PR work for the Veterans Stand for Standing Rock.
Wow.
So, these folks knew what they were doing and were connected to each other the entire time. And they did not mention Seven McDonald. Mm-mm. They didn't mention her name. Maggie started mentioning that there was this friend of hers. They never said, we were hired to go out and do PR for the Veterans Stand for Standing Rock, specifically for Wes Clark Jr., and we're still working for him. No, they kept everything very nebulous. They acted as if they knew him. Maggie made it seem like she worked for Wes and had worked for Wes before. And so she knew his family and she knew him pretty well. Maggie was just now working with Seven, and it seemed like they were pretty good friends. So she kind of knows about Seven's clients, and Seven knows about her clients. Mm-hmm. And so, but they all know each other.
Yeah.
And they never told me any of that. None of it.
It's pretty important to know, too.
Yeah, I mean, they're covering up their connections to each other for a reason, because they don't want us to realize that they were working a PR campaign out at Standing Rock. This was not really organic. This was not really all about spirituality or the kids or any of the stuff that they tried to tell you. And the reason it wasn't was because of these people's presence.
Exactly.
Because they were mocking what was... They decided to come and AstroTurf and mock what should have been an organic grassroots movement of indigenous people fighting for their rights. You didn't need to bring in fake Indians. You didn't need to bring in costumes. You didn't need to dress white people up as Indians, have them pretend to be... You didn't need to do any of that mocking, disrespectful crap. It wasn't necessary. Now, I also wanted to remind you that in my recent shows, I showed you what one of the kingpins, Christina Hollenbeck, was recently up to from that Nexus group of inherited wealth. And I showed you she was involved with this Solve MIT thing where they went out to Standing Rock with that new Nexus indigenous dude that Marianne Thompson Frank kind of passed the torch to at the Nexus group. And they were out at Standing Rock. and they were peddling some new ideas with MIT because, of course, as you know, MIT gave them an award. I don't think they realize who they're dealing with.
Yeah.
Or
Gosh.
what the... Even MIT did not look into these people. I hope that MIT finds out, watches my show, figures out that these people have defrauded them and get their $10,000 back.
Yeah.
Or however much more money and commitments they have made to working with these fraudulent people. But let me show you one of the other people who was mentioned in that first clip when Wesley Clark Jr. told me who got him to go out to Standing Rock. And if you recall, there was some controversy about, this particular person, James Martinez. In that clip, Wes told me that what was really strange about this guy was that there was some kerfuffle with him having asked Oliver Stone's son for his number or something like that.
Yeah.
Because he said, why would Sean Stone need my phone number when he's my friend and I already have his phone number?
Mm-hmm.
And this was the guy whose name was brought up, James Martinez. And he said, James Martinez is this guy who put me in contact with Phyllis. In fact, almost every time I ever talked to Phyllis Young, James Martinez was an intermediary. And we never got into who James Martinez was or what that whole thing was about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what I found, folks? On Lip TV, same channel as the Young Turks. This interview for Buzzsaw, which appears on Lip TV, which is part of the TYT network, being hosted by Sean Stone, interviewing said James Martinez about cold fusion. Here it is.
Wow.
Hi, I'm Sean Stone. Today we're going to be talking about cold fusion, so stick around. This is Buzzsaw.
Central Intelligence Agency.
It was described by witnesses as
This week commemorates the anniversary of the nuclear bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki thereafter. So in the American public's mind, we've always had a paradoxical mentality or approach to nuclear energy. We've remembered the horrors of the nuclear bombs and the effects of radiation. We've also seen the tragedy of Fukushima and its ongoing effects, infecting the water supply to this very day in Japan and potentially into the oceans beyond. So with this reaction to nuclear power, it's difficult to sometimes address the fact that nuclear energy is a tremendously safe and beneficial power source. We've pretty much cut it off from being a generator of power, of great power and energy in our country, especially since 1979. But here we are today, having heard recently that cold fusion seems to work. There's an Italian inventor named Andrea Rossi, whose energy catalyzer, or ECAT, has for years been dismissed as a fantasy, a hoax, and yet this summer was independently corroborated as being successful. Its output seems to be a minimum of 4 times what oil would generate, oil being right now the most efficient fuel source, and yet his energy, ECAT, seems to be producing 4 times what oil does. So, do we have potentially a revolution, a game changer in energy technologies? Joining me today is James Martinez, who co-founded the coldfusionnow.org, which is an online website and group that you can follow more about cold fusion there. And he's a self-proclaimed media ecologist. You're not a scientist, but you obviously have met with a lot of scientists, you work with them, and you're trying to basically become the public face in a certain sense. You're trying to get the public face of cold fusion out there for lay people to understand it, because obviously when we talk about fusion technology, it's pretty heavy stuff.
Very, very much so.
So, yeah, I guess let's start with this Andrea Rossi discovery, because obviously you've known about him for years, but here we are. And what do you think? Is this a game changer for cold fusion?
I know it's a game changer. In fact, If people, when they're watching this, they want to quickly review the Forbes article that came out online, which is pretty much the first article that came out and said, listen, they've had third-party verification that cold fusion now exists.
Well, let's find out if that's true, okay? Because do you know much about cold fusion, anybody?
I don't know anything about cold fusion. I just like draw a blank. It's like, oh, I'll have to watch this to try to understand.
I've actually heard about this before. When I was the editor of the High Plains Reader, there was some guy at NDSU who wanted to tell me about how he had a experiment going at the university on the campus using cold fusion, and nobody would cover it. No one would jump on the story, and he was really upset about it. And he said they're trying to hide it and they're trying to keep it from people, and it sounded really wacko.
Yeah.
Not long after that, the police and campus security had to come and drag him off the campus.
Okay.
Turned out, no such thing. But for those uninitiated into cold fusion, let me tell you, this just comes from Wikipedia. You can look up more on your own, but I will also refer folks to that fusion article in just a second. Let me first explain what I found on, Wikipedia about the use of cold fusion. Many scientists have tried to replicate the experiment with few details available. Hopes faded due to the large number of negative replications, the withdrawal of many reported positive replications, and the discovery of flaws and sources of experimental errors in the original experiment that claimed to have found cold fusion to be this great energy source, cheap energy source. And then finally, the discovery that Fleischmann and Pons had not actually detected nuclear reaction byproducts. So it was completely debunked. I'm reading just a section of it. It wasn't even I didn't start even in the very beginning of the wiki. But I just wanted to read that part of you that showed all of the things that basically debunked the original finding of cold fusion. And the last sentence there that says the discovery that Fleischmann and Pons, the original guys that did the experiment, hadn't actually detected any kind of reaction byproducts. So the original thing that all of these other things were based on was false.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So by the late 1980s, 1989 to be specific, that's when I graduated from high school. Most scientists already knew and considered cold fusion dead. Like, it's faux, it's not real science, it's fake, it's like quackery. And cold fusion subsequently gained a reputation as pathological science. So, in 1989, do you want to keep reading that?
Oh, let's see where you are.
In 1989, the United States Department of Energy. Do you see that? Where it says in the Department of Energy?
Yep. Let's see. In 1989, the United States Department of Energy concluded that the reported results of excess heat did not present convincing evidence of useful source of energy and decided against allocating funding specifically for cold fusion. A second DOE review in 2004, which looked at new research, researched similar conclusions and did not result in DOE funding of cold fusion. A small community of researchers continues to investigate cold fusion, now often preferring the designation of low-energy nuclear reactions, LENR, or condensed matter nuclear science, CMNS. Since cold fusion articles are rarely published in peer-reviewed mainstream scientific journals, they do not attract the level of scrutiny expected for mainstream scientific publications. So they're basically saying that the stuff is bunk. And they're not going to fund it, and it's like the original experiment didn't even discover what all these other things are being based on. The continued studies and the promotion of cold fusion is a viable energy source. Sounds kind of scary to me when you just start taking nuclear matter, and the radioactive matter and doing things to it. It's like, I think that sort of stuff is really scary.
Well, what's scary is what this type of fakery does to people. It's called pathological science.
Oh,
That's what they said, that they consider this type of cold fusion, quackery, and other types of experiments like it that have already been debunked and found to be completely false. And the reason they call it that is because it's an area of research in which people trick themselves or are tricked by others into believing on false results, either by subjective effects, by wishful thinking, or by threshold interactions. So this is basically snake oil or a con job. Okay, I don't know how to say it any other way. That James Martinez is working with Phyllis Young. That's the same James Martinez that West said got him to go out to Standing Rock. This is the same guy that is involved with trying to do cold fusion. I don't know if MIT realizes what they're getting themselves into. I'm not sure if that is exactly what Christina Hollenbeck and those people out there are working on, but it seems to me like Nora Maccabee and others like her husband would not be endorsing this kind of nonsense or even standing next to it. And yet there they are. It doesn't make any sense to me. Well, let me tell you about that Forbes article, because I looked it up, and it says in Forbes, is cold fusion feasible or is it a fraud?
Huh.
And this is an article by Ethan Seigel.
Yep.
I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. Obviously, you want to go check it out for yourself. You can. We'll share the link with this program. But I'm going to read an excerpt for you from here about learn or cold fusion. It says, although there are many scientists, many fringe scientists, some armchair scientists, and some serious scientists as well, working on cold fusion or LENR devices, there's only one type of experiment that has met the scientific set of criteria for being robust, reproducible science: muon catalyzed fusion. Hydrogen atoms are made out of protons and electrons, and because electrons are so light, they typically have a physical size of around 10 to 10 meters. You can bring multiple atoms closer together, but their nuclei, which only have a size of about 10 to 15 meters, never get close enough at these low temperatures for their quantum wave functions to overlap enough that fusion occurs. If you replace the electron with a muon, an unstable particle with a lifetime of just 2.2 microseconds, then hydrogen atoms become hundreds of times smaller, and then the wave functions can overlap, and low energy fusion does occur. But you need muons. And, of course, this thing would be a great energy source if it didn't cost so damn much to produce and control muons. So that's really the crux of it. The way that they're doing cold fusion only works if they use muons, and the whole point of trying to do cold fusion is that it's cheaper, right?
Yeah.
And that it's green. But it's very expensive to control and to buy muons in the first place, to make the muons in the first place. So it kind of defeats the whole purpose of being cost saving, because it's too expensive to do it with muons. For all other ideas without muons, mechanisms and devices that exist out there, there's no experiment that can be performed with them where you get fusion occurring and more energy out than what you put in. There's nothing published that is verifiable, and repeatable by an independent team, and there is no device out there, despite purported demonstrations existing for over 5 years now, that you can purchase, investigate, use, or control without interference from so-called inventors. So, despite what claims you might hear from cold fusion enthusiasts, LENR researchers, Andrea Rossi, or Def Callion, none of them are willing to provide you with a verifiable working device that you can investigate independently, nor will an experiment you can repeat, nor with an experiment that you can repeat yourself. Any contention to the contrary is philosophically indefensible.
Well,
So that's what these people are peddling. It's not even real.
yeah.
It's all fake. This is what is really disturbing to me, that all of these people out at Standing Rock, they were trying to do all this energy stuff. Why would you steer people to stuff that's not even real? Does that make any sense to you?
No, in fact, it actually makes me kind of second guess their motivations. You know, a lot of the green energies actually have been more expensive to produce, and they've gotten government subsidies. You know, ethanol, solar. You know, and the idea is that it's a renewable energy source. And it wouldn't surprise me if these folks were like taking advantage of the people, you know, that were part of the Standing Rock encampment and the leadership to bring in, you know, because there was a lot of push to do all sorts of energy issues on the Standing Rock Reservation, which, by the way, only has like 6,000 to 8,000 people who live there. And they want people to invest millions of dollars in all these energy things they're doing. And I think they're just trying to cash in on something that's never going to pan out, but it's going to get some funding and some tread, you know, where they can take it. So that's kind of my initial reaction to it. Especially, I know you're just reading the Forbes article, and you know it's like they're saying this stuff is not true, and yet Sean Stone is in there saying this is great, and
And
has the characters from Standing Rock right there at the seat.
And you know, I have to say, like, that's not far-fetched coming from Sean Stone. I've watched others of his shows, not on Lip TV, but in, you know, on InfoWars or on Russian television and Buzzsaw, where he's talking about Martians and you know, UFOs and things like that. So I'm not that surprised that he would talk about things that aren't real, or that he would talk about things, or that those networks would have things like that on there, because you hear, you know, InfoWars, Alex Jones talking about all sorts of crazy nonsense that's not real, but that's expected from a place like that. What is not expected is that a channel associated with TYT would be carrying such nonsense, or that they would be selling it to Native Americans.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what's really disturbing. I mean, it feels a lot like when they took our gold and gave us beads in trade. You know, I'm like, what's up with that? Are we having some technical difficulties? A lot of...
it looks like we're having some timeouts.
Do you want to try the other thing? You want to try turning it on?
No,
It's
won't
just
help. Not if it comes from there.
You think we're having some kind of DDoS attack on our...
I don't know.
On our interweb?
I wouldn't be able to tell that.
Maybe the fake scientists are mad that I'm calling out their fakery.
Well, you did bring up Alex Jones' name.
I did. But that kind of is where that kind of rubbish, the alt-right nonsense, vitamin selling, supplement selling that doesn't really help you. You know, they're the snake oil salesmen. They're also the people that are selling you these lies about, you know, who was it, that guy, that Steele guy that was talking about Martian sex slaves on Mars?
On Mars. The colonies on Mars.
Colonies on Mars of children who are slaves, sex slaves.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, they talk about crazy things that don't make any sense to real people. But why were they peddling that kind of thing to reservations, to Native Americans, and in particular, People like Wesley Clark's friend Nora Maccabee, and the people that are associating with this James Martinez, Wes Clark Jr. himself, and of course Phyllis Young. Well, there's a lot of other things that I wanted to share with you about some of these people that have come around lately. One of them that I told you was just here was Nexus's Christina Hollenbeck, right? And Phyllis Young, and they were doing all that MIT Solve stuff out there. But guess who else was out here? Remember that Marcus guy that got his eye supposedly shot by the
Marcus Mitchell
that got his eye shot by well, first he said the police in Morton County, and then he said very recently that it was in fact the National Guard. I reached out to him for an interview in which he did not ever grant me, and then he said he was doing okay with the WPLC on the comments of that show. Well, remember that I said there was just one guy that had actually talked to him that looked like they were associated in some way with doing media work, or, advocacy work and Standing Rock, and that was a guy named John Gonzalez. You remember this? John Gonzalez, and he had like a phone video that he did where he interviewed Mr. Marcus.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We didn't play it. I just told people this is the only guy that's talked to him, and I'm surprised that nobody else has talked to him. Well, I wanted to show you that James Martinez was recently hanging out with LaDonna and a bunch of people, including Matt Remmel, all this summer, just in July. It was very recent. July, August, there's a bunch of stuff that went on, and I wanted to rewind a couple of months back and show you what all this activity was, because I found it very interesting. All these folks were gathering together again and again, who they're hanging out with. Here first is a video of none other than informant Michael Fassig, the guy whose son recently kidnapped, raped a woman for a week, along with a bunch of other media people associated with Activate Now. And that would be Mike Fassig. And with him is that person that said she was a nurse from Toronto, Dee Dee Banerjee. Both of these people knew about the Kathleen Bennett story, had friends that were involved in the security team that gave false statements against Kathleen Bennett. And as it turns out, what?
We are not broadcasting.
And at all anymore? What did you try turning on the?
Yeah, I don't think it'll make a difference, but
we'll try it. Did you even try it?
Well, technically it won't. If the one is losing packets, it's not going to create. It's going to lose packets on the way. So it's not like it's in a physically different place.
I don't know. So what happened? Did it die?
Nope.
Did that help it? Or is it... Oh, reconnection successful, it says. So it reconnected on its own.
Yeah,
I'm
but
assuming.
we're still.
See, all you
we're not broadcasting still.
Are you sure?
It says right here, 0 kilobytes being broadcasted.
Now it says 658 kilobytes being
it's
broadcast.
Too small.
It's still too small?
Yeah, we do 2,500.
Oh, shoot. Well, that's no good. Now let's see. Now it says 50. Well, now we have packets. Why is it still not? No. There we go. Still not. No?
Nope.
So you think you should just end the broadcast and restart another one?
And restart the router.
Yes?
Yes. Okay. Well, if anyone can hear us, and also for the rebroadcast on YouTube, what we're going to do is we've had some trouble with the with things coming in and out, and it's just really hard for people to watch things when it freezes every few seconds. So though you're seeing this on YouTube, you're not seeing any of that because it's an actual recording of the broadcast. So we're going to end this part 1, and we'll call it continued. Grifter, Drifter, continued. So we're going to sign off for about 5 minutes, and we're going to come right back on. All right?
We shall resume shortly.